branch manager thing. All right, everyone. I guess we're good to go. We're going to take things out of schedule a little bit and start with an introduction of a group by Paul.
Okay, good evening, everybody. We're in a different location. Headquarters of Western Art. Isn't that fun? Normally, you got great Western art on the wall, but tonight, at least with our first speaker, we are going to celebrate possibly the second biggest event in the history of the National Western Complex that is coming here in 3 weeks, and that is known as the Riot Fest. And don't be scared by the name, okay? It is a huge, huge celebration of music, and we're blessed to have Michael Large with us tonight, who ended up striking the deal with me and my group here. So you are going to have world-class entertainment across this complex for 3 days at the end of August. And with that, Michael, if you could introduce yourself and tell everybody kind of what to expect so that the neighborhood leaders can feel a little more comfortable that you guys are doing. All right.
So my name is Michael Clark. I'm a local partner with Riot Fest. Riot Fest started in Chicago. It's a music festival, 3-day music festival. Thank you, sir. And we do 3 of them. There's one in Chicago, which is where it originated, Denver, and Toronto. This is our 3rd year here in Denver. Previously, last year we were at Mile High Stadium, and the year prior we were out on a farm in the fires. The festival will run August 28th, 29th, and 30th, so Friday it starts about midday, about 3 p.m., and then runs until midnight, and then Saturday is 3 to midnight, and Sunday starts at noon. I'm sorry, Saturday is 12 to noon to midnight, and Sunday is noon to 10 p.m. So for the most part, the bulk of the festival will be outdoor. We'll utilize the event, the large event center inside. We'll have 2 small stages and kind of give people an opportunity to get out of the sun and have some shade and bathroom access. But of course, we'll have bathrooms and porta potties outside as well. So there's 6 stages total. There's 2 main stages that will be located in, I forget the lot, which lot it is.
It's probably north of the event center.
Yeah, north of the event center.
There's a lot of activity up there north of the event center.
Right, and we'll have 2 other large stages that are pretty much right out here in this parking lot.
Right, the front parking lot that you all are parked in right now.
Right. And then we'll have, like I said, the 2 stages inside, and then there'll be kind of a small carnival, maybe 7 to 8 rides. Lots of food vendors, artisanal vendors, so basically people that have, arts and crafts and, different types of things that they want to sell on the site. Dates and times, and then I think all told we've got about 90 bands that are playing, and they're all large national acts normally, many of which you see playing at the Pepsi Center or the Red Rocks, the Fiddler's Green, and then, smaller acts that play a lot of the local clubs in town as well, the Ogden, Hoover, so on and so forth, so on and so forth. There's, in terms of camping, it was something that we thought about doing. We had done it the first year, but we were out on the farm, so it made a lot more sense. It was a lot more destination. I don't think we're going to adjust that this year. Our goal really is to just put on a really solid, well-run event and have things run smoothly. spots at our disposal, and we didn't even utilize all of those. We like really encourage people to utilize public transportation, to bike or take cabs or Uber or that type of thing, just really to kind of minimize the impact on traffic in the neighborhood. And it worked really well last year, and I think we'll see the same this year.
So at Mile High last year was generally, Michael, you felt good about the noise level, you felt good about it, because obviously here we're going to be doing a lot more towards bringing sound towards the buildings to diffuse it from the neighborhoods. We've all talked a lot about that.
Right, that's right. And as we mapped out the site, considering much of it is outdoors, we're very conscientious in terms of how we're pointing the stages, how we're pointing the speakers, and luckily out this way compared to where we were at Mile High, it's not quite as dense, I think, residentially, and so I think that should help us quite a bit in terms of having the sound carry. But like Paul said, the stages really are directed more inward and towards the buildings, and I think that should help quite a bit to work a lot of sound. We've met with the city as well, and the environmental control, and the people basically that handle noise complaints and that type of thing. So, they let us know what the decibel ratings are, what we need to operate within. Totally not a problem. They'll be there on site as well, with decibel meters, making sure that we're compliant, and we don't foresee
Armando, you're going to speak up some because this room doesn't have good acoustics.
The event is 3 days, so it's Friday, August 28th, 29th, and 30th. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And it begins Friday, doors open at 2 p.m. Doors open at midnight. Saturday opens at noon, goes to midnight. And Sunday, noon, and goes to 10:30.
First one of the questions is target audience.
So, Rifus is kind of, it's an interesting festival in relation to a lot of the other large festivals around the country, like Coachella or Lollapalooza or that type of thing. They look a lot of kind of what's hot now bands, which tends to draw a number of young crowd. We tend to look a lot more nostalgic kind of artists, so a lot of kind of the 90s, like late 90s, early 2000s. And so, what we found is it definitely turns old. Last year, for instance, we did with Here. Here, we're like, John Lennon, so everybody there is well into the 30s. But, you definitely get younger folks that come out as well. It's a really easy, well-behaved crowd. The reports last year after Mile High wrapped up, we had very few incidents, and in fact, I think we had half the incidents in the wrong. So that was encouraging.
I just want to understand the impact of that.
Right. Well, we have, we're working with local police, fire, and medical, and our security director is hugely experienced with this large festivals all over the country. And we have him in place to oversee all of the security, work with I kind of refer to him as the babysitter that babysits the babysitters. So he's on top of it, he does a great job. Our goal is to obviously move the neighbors and to really minimize the impact. And to put it in perspective as well, stock show, I think, was it going to be 60,000 a day?
We did, our highest day was 69,000, so yeah,
Yeah,
50 to
65,000.
65,000.
So in comparison, we anticipated we're from 20 to 25,000.
Yeah, but stop show, is it going to be, I assume that
That would be a good thing for us all to keep an eye on tomorrow morning.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I mean, we're going to have a tremendous amount of security on site as well as mobile PD. Yeah, I don't know. You know, last year we really didn't get a lot of feedback as far as that. I was covered wet out.
I'm going to have to jump in real quick. The folks behind us back there can't hear very well because there's an echo in this room. So you're going to have to project your voice, put a little bit more bass in it to get over the echo.
Or step up.
The question.
Or stand up when you speak. I mean,
Paul, this is private property. Is it legal to smoke pot here for events like this?
Absolutely not, and it will not be tolerated.
In terms of that happening in
Those
your
two.
Can't hear you.
yeah.
She asked
Pot on
if
the periphery because it won't be legal within the event, and so like having more of an effect in the neighborhood, people going outside, at least from a safety standpoint. Is that something you're very much?
Well, absolutely. And we'll do, we'll do like pat downs and bag checks. So, I mean, any kind of contraband, no matter what it is, whatever happens to the truck, we're not going to allow that. And security and PD, of course, will be going in the ground and we'll enforce it.
John,
I'm sure there's a lot of concerns, and I certainly have a lot. I think looking at the history of the Riot Fest, what happened in Byers, you've had a hard time relocating.
This is his first one here. This is his first one.
At this point, I really think that we are right at the threshold. We've been, last 2 years, sitting around trying to figure out what we're going to do in the future, and we're looking at the future right here. Now, I don't know this man, and the only thing I know about Riot Fest is that
It's a terrible name.
what I read in the paper. Damn, I missed it. I wish I'd have been there. Look, we're at the threshold of opening the door to some things that are going to happen in the neighborhood that are going to be opportunities for everybody. And at this point, I think, yeah, we all have concerns. And my concern is the same as everyone else's. Safety, loud noise, what kind of music. It's not any different than what goes on in the neighborhoods around us every weekend, every night in some cases. It's just going to be more of it. But the difference is there's money involved. And we're at the threshold of making this area a wonderful opportunity, and there's got to be give and take. And I don't know this man at all, and I wish we'd have had the Riot Fest 10 years ago here. We should be looking at more of these venues. Sure, there's going to be problems, but there's not going to be any more problems than we have now. Camping out, I'd love to see people camp out. Maybe it'd run all the damn homeless and tramps along the river out of here, and we could turn this whole thing around. That's what we're looking at. Making this area to benefit not only the institution that's here, but all of us around. Every neighborhood, every opportunity around. Just think how many hot dogs and burritos you might be able to sell in and around here if we were set up to do it. 20,000 folks a day, they're going to eat, drink, and whatever. So, yeah, we all have concerns, but let's get it on and get it moving so that we can work these things out as we go along and make it better next year. A bigger Riot Fest, more Riot Fest, whatever. Let's get it done.
go ahead.
I don't know if
I mean, you have a mile high and fire. You're looking for a place to stay.
We're looking to stay here. In fact, I mean, we've struck a deal with the intention of staying here for the next 5 years.
It's a multiple-year deal, and our intent would be 5 years at least. And these guys are some of the premier concert promoters in the country that we're dealing with. They're not just fly-by-night guys. I mean, I did the Mile High Music Festival for 3 years out at Dick's Sporting Goods Park, and it failed miserably. These guys have a huge business model, a huge following, and John's absolutely right. that we ought to get behind this, embrace these guys. We'll deal with a little bit of the ancillary problems, my staff, and these guys, and all of you, and we'd love to hear your feedback after the event. So, with that, I know, Mr. Chairman, you don't want us to dominate the meeting here.
This is the last question
Yeah, no,
right here.
it wasn't a question, and I'm sorry, I don't know if you said it because it's hard to hear back here, but one of the things that was interesting to me when I was learning about it was when people come into the festival, they actually cannot leave. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So that really helps eliminate some of that loitering that people are concerned about going out to their cars or et cetera, et cetera. And once they come in, they have to stay in until they leave. And so I just wanted to point that out. I don't know if that was mentioned earlier or not.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. We're going to go skip out of order again, and we're going to go to Celia Vanderloop for the site environmental assessment update and the early action drainage, should have brought my glasses with me, early action drainage project and Coliseum drainage update.
What number is it?
That's number 3 under NWC updates. Oh, there's a microphone there. Actually, I think that would help with this.
So, I had 2 things to talk about. Let me do the second one first because the presentation is a little better for first. A little more useful. So the second thing I had wanted to talk about was the open channel drainage that was contemplated on the National Western property and the Coliseum property. You guys will remember that the National Western Master Plan contemplated an open channel drainage across the Coliseum property and redevelopment on that site. But it wasn't fleshed out what that redevelopment would look like or exactly where the drainage would go. Just that it would go across the Coliseum property and enter the river. And you'll also remember that in the early spring, February or so, the city hosted a number of meetings where we talked about a bunch of issues associated with I-70. And as a part of that, we talked about the need for improved drainage and that there was significant flooding south of the highway, kind of extending all the way over to Colorado, but going through that area and coming out at the river. And so the city has been looking at options to improve drainage in that area. And water runs downhill and the water's got to get to the river, so it kind of has to come across the Coliseum property to actually get to the river. So we're looking at feasibility of various options on how to address that and how to get the water across the Coliseum property. And there's a whole bunch of factors that need to be considered. There's the drainage needs, the volume of the water, how big does the channel need to be. There's National Western operations and how can they continue to operate and how can they be provided with the needed parking. There's ongoing parking needs for National Western and other uses. You'll remember that the Del interceptor runs across there. The Metro wastewater sewage line also runs across the east side and it crosses Global Landing Park. But that is a constraint because it influences where you can put the drainage and how high and how low it has to be. And then, depending on where the channel goes on that Coliseum property, that affects how the redevelopment will look. Pepsi right now with McFarland, they stage trucks on McFarland and they need to be able to operate and continue to operate. So there's Pepsi needs for staging trucks in their operations. And then you're all aware that the Coliseum property is a Superfund site, and so there are significant environmental concerns there. CDOT has drainage needs. CDOT's remnant drainage system will run from east to west, and then will also want to go across the Coliseum property. And then last but not least is impacts to Global Landing Park. And so we are in the process of looking at a lot of options of how to address all those concerns and what's the best fit. And so I don't have any plans to show you. I just wanted to say that's going on. that the city is evaluating a variety of options and a variety of costs. We intend to be back out, and we expect that maybe August or September, and we intend to be back out and talk about more concrete, here's what we think would be a configuration, and then how do we best get input on what does global landing, how can the impacts to global landing be best managed, and how, what should the surface topography be, and where should there be overloads, should there be a waterfall feature, how should we do that?
Cindy, I was just going to say, the neighborhood plans and discussions, there was a lot of discussion about making the open channel a real entity, like park-like features with bike trails, and is that's very important.
Yes, and that's still, we're really trying to work that in of how can we make this an amenity that provides, in the ideal, it would connect to, there would be green infrastructure, et cetera, and amenities throughout the drainage system, and then also that it would potentially provide habitat and, walking paths and be a naturalized area. And so that's part of what we're talking about. That's part of how do we best do that. Going through a Superfund site is very expensive. The water needs to run downhill, so the water needs to go where the water wants to go. And so there's a lot of cost constraints, and there's a lot of things that need to be balanced against each other. So I'm not in a position to say here's what it's going to look like or here's exactly where it's going to be, but that issue you raised is definitely on the table.
You have to speak up so they can hear you back here still.
Hopefully I was going to join in on this question. The question is twofold. One, there's the $80 million that the city has allocated to working with CDOT. That's the first part of the question. Those funds being worked with and the CDOT and the city working to resolve this wastewater management issue. The second thing is obviously Tim Gallagher did sign off on that on the IGA. We'd like to know what the status of that is and how does that affect this project. No, I said Dennis Gallagher did not sign. Dennis Gallagher did not sign the agreement, the IGA agreement. Tim O'Brien is now the new auditor, as many of you know. What's the status of that document right now today?
So let me start with the first one, and CDOT's participation. The whole channel, the whole drainage structure that is involved there is been split into two pieces, and one is being called Two Basins Drainage Project, and the other is the Early Action Drainage Project, and I think that name is going to change because it's kind of a bureaucratic name. So Early Action is the portion that would be on the Coliseum property, and CDOT did contribute some funds as part of that IGA to this, so that they can direct some of their stormwater into this portion. City needs to build it anyway because we have drainage issues that we need to address, but some CDOT funds is going to be contributed to building this early action portion. And to be honest, the IGA and Dennis Gallagher signing it, I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
So Tim O'Brien has been meeting with every city council person to kind of hear their concerns around the IGA, and he's going to make a decision at the end of this week. He has a bit of legal obligation to have some technical reasons why or why not he's going to sign the document. It sounds like his office and himself, they're in favor of signing. We'll see what happens, but we'll know more next week. It's kind of in the air. I had my meeting with him on Monday.
What do you mean by technical reasons? Can you just kind of define?
Yeah, you just, because you have an issue kind of with I-70, you can't just not sign a document that's been signed by the mayor and the city council. There has to be a technical issue actually with the document. Maybe there's an issue with how the document, it's being funded, but he is liable by charter to sign off on.
I just want to know the definition of what technical is not, what it's not. You know what I'm saying? So you're saying something that has to do with the language of the document? That a lawyer would need to
Yeah, David Broadwell just briefed all of us as council staff because many of us were asking the question, you know, how can, I mean, this gets way off the subject of what you're talking about, and we probably shouldn't go on, but can an official, especially the auditor or mayor, not sign and document just because they have feelings against it? Or does there have to be some technical, you know, reasoning behind it? And what authority are they given? So,
I think we'll leave it at that.
Just for the dignity of the neighborhoods and everyone involved, I want to be clear, I don't think we're asking him not to sign just on an emotional basis. So, but we do need, it's not just because of having feelings, but we do need to not let this down.
yeah, that's right. That's right.
We just need to understand.
That's right.
What technically do.
If you want to call Albus about it, I'll give you his cell phone number.
I'm sure many people.
Mickey.
So where is, initially it sounded like the water was coming from the National Western, but now I hear it's water coming from I-70, is it coming from Montclair? Where is all this water coming from?
All of this water is coming from the Montclair drainage basin, and Montclair drainage basin it's really large. It's about 20% of the stormwater from Denver, and yeah, thank you, Steve. Montclair basin starts kind of in east-southeast, it runs across City Park, and it comes up through that area. So all this water is south of the highway. And so it's going to be captured. Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, and we will come back at next time or following time and talk in more detail. And at that time, I can show it's called a Flow 2D, the model that shows where flooding is and where flooding occurs right now. This drainage improvements are intended to address just that area south of the highway. But it runs through the Coliseum, which is part of National Western. Coliseum property.
Is there water cleanup before it goes through the river, and is it essentially going through the park area or the 23 acres that belongs to the city?
Well, and that's part of the purpose of why we contemplated open channel and why we'd like to have green infrastructure. This is stormwater, stormwater falls on the streets and it picks up dirt and oil and, stuff. And that, if that moves through without treatment, that ends up in the river. So the open channel, if we build the open channel, there'll be vegetation and grass and some naturalized wetlands, and that will provide some treatment to the water.
But that's going to be the only treatment?
Well, the whole system has not been designed. The goal is to have natural areas and settling ponds and vegetation and wetlands all throughout the improved drainage system, but it just hasn't been designed yet, so I can't say here's where it's going to be and here's how it's going to work, because I don't know.
Well, the concern is that we've always been the repository of the other parts of the city don't belong. And I just think it's important that this not be another example of taking drainage from the entire city and dumps it into this area, and we have to deal with the issue. There are other detention areas along the river, and I think we need to make sure that it's not all being done into our area.
We certainly hear you, and that is the city's goal is to provide treatment and detention as the water moves along. John, did you know?
Yeah, I share Mickey's concerns and part of his statement. That's why maybe I ended up being where I'm now in Globeville. But I think naturally water runs downhill, and we're gonna be on the receiving end of all the water because we're the lowest end of the city. And my feeling, and maybe it's a mode of survival, is you take the disadvantage that you have and try to turn it around and make it advantageous to you. Water is going to be a precious commodity. We're going to have a center here in conjunction with CSU, the National Center, National Western Center, So we have a commodity that's falling our way. And for the future generations, let's start an education project and get the city on board. I spoke out at City Council against the funding scheme that took effect with the city and CDOT and all of that. Elvis seemed to be a little embarrassed as to what went on, but we spoke what I thought was the truth at that hearing. But nevertheless, it's here. So let's make sure that whoever has the water and it's flowing out of their neighborhood, that it's at least as clean as it got to their neighborhood before it leaves. And in you guys know how to do it. I don't. But on Mickey's concern, my concern, and everybody that lives in this part of the city is that, damn it, we're tired. But, again, there's light at the tunnel. This is the best opportunity we've had in 50 years. So let's be optimistic about it and take advantage of the water situation and make it work our way. I think that we can do that. There's technology available. They've done it in other parts of the world with a lot less capability than we have. So let's, move forward and get it done, But we need to maybe form a group specifically to deal with water and how it affects the neighborhood that it goes through and where it goes, ultimately, at the end of it. And I'm sure the federal government has all kinds of regulations to deal with that. And I know the city's been dragging their feet over the North Side Park area. So, I say let's move forward with it and get it going.
Well, I had promised to try to do this piece in 3 minutes, and I've gone way over. So let me talk about the environmental stuff, and I'd be happy to stick around after the meeting and answer more questions. I wanted to talk real quickly about what we're doing for environmental investigations at National Western. And I have Dave Willis' name on here because he's the project manager leading this effort. And so, let me tell you what you already know. There's a lot of past industrial use up here, and that may have contaminated the soils and the groundwater. And we need to do further investigations so that we can protect health during the construction and during the long-term use of the redeveloped National Western area. And so, and then also that information is needed to improve the redevelopment planning and to improve our cost estimating, because environmental often can really be a big swing in the cost of a project, and so we want to improve that cost estimating. So what we've done is we've looked at the entire National Western Master Plan area. And that entire area we did a records review. So we looked at Sanborn maps, which are basically old insurance maps. We looked at aerial photos. We looked at historical phone books. And so when you do that, you look at phone books every 5 years to see what businesses held what properties. And you look at the insurance documents to see what they were insuring at various times. And there's quite extensive records that you can look at. And then for the areas that are owned by National Western Stock Show or owned by the city, we went out and we did physical investigations. And so that included interviewing the property owner, visiting the property and doing walkthroughs, and field sampling. So it included soil sampling, groundwater sampling, and test pits and vapors. And by vapors, I mean methane, because there's some old buried landfills, and then solvents, because we know based on our records review that there was dry cleaners and some other places that would have used solvents. And then we also know south of the highway that there were places that used some solvents that might have moved in this direction. So here's what we found. We found in surface soils some fairly low levels of metals contamination, which was frankly good news. We were worried we were going to see a lot more contamination. And on this map, I know this is really hard to see, but the green dots are locations where we took soil sampling. Where the green dots stay green, the concentrations of lead are below 400 parts per million, which is the residential screening level. Where the dots are yellow, the concentrations are between 400 and 800 parts per million, which is 800 parts per million is the level of concern for commercial and industrial properties. And then there's one spot where there's a little red dot, and that little red dot is the little dots are at depth and the bigger dots are surface. So from 6 to 24 inches, we had a sample result that was greater than 800 parts per million. But frankly, this is really pretty good news. But we had expected it to be dirtier. We also did sampling for arsenic, and we didn't see anything above the level of concern that CDPHE identifies for residential soil. So everything was below 70 parts per million, and it was quite a bit lower than that. We also did quite a number of test pits, and in those test pits we saw a lot of buried debris. And in general, that buried debris was west of the railroad tracks. And that kind of generally, we think what happened is there were a good number of buildings there, and that when those buildings came down, they were basically smashed and buried in place. We had been going to do ground penetrating radar to look for buried tanks. We did not do that because there's so much buried debris that the ground penetrating radar wouldn't have told us anything. You know, we would have just seen a lot of stuff, and we wouldn't have known whether it was buried concrete or whether it was a tank. We saw some perchloroethylene in groundwater down at that southeast corner of the area. There was an old dry cleaner in that area, but that dry cleaner closed up at least 40, 50 years ago, is my understanding. So we are going to do some further investigations to look for that perchloroethylene and see how extensive that is, and that's in groundwater. Based on every record search we've done, there's no one drinking groundwater. There's no surface use of groundwater that we were able to find. So the concern of that groundwater is, of that perchloroethylene in groundwater, is it turning into a vapor and moving up through the soil and into the homes above. We looked at those groundwater concentrations, and we also looked at vapor, and the concentrations of levels were below screening level, but we're going to do some additional work there to make sure that we know what's going on and that they're low. We also saw some methane. The DPS bus barn is an old landfill. It's on top of an old landfill. Does everyone know where the DPS bus barn is? Yeah. Okay. So there's an old landfill on that property that extends to the north, and we found some methane moving off that property to the west. And so we're going to go back out and do some more work looking for the extent of that methane migration, because methane vapor moving in soil can be an explosion hazard.
Can you point that out?
Oh, okay, sure. So here's the property, and the methane was like right about there. But we're gonna do some work along here to look for more methane, and then we're gonna do some work down here, looking in addition at groundwater and at vapor. And we expect to do that work. We have a consultant proposal in now. We expect to do that work in August and September, and I think that just. So, bottom line is, we hope to come back for a more detailed presentation next month or the following. We're going to do the further groundwater investigation. We're going to do the further investigation of methane and the vapors, and then we expect to start that further investigation in August and September. Any questions? This is what I had already talked about earlier. So.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I wasn't sure to applaud, because it's like when Facebook, someone writes something, and it's like, do you like it or do you not like it? Because information's interesting, but is it interesting enough to like without feeling bad about yourself? But I guess we can applaud this.
May I?
Yes.
Just insert something real quick?
Yes.
Okay, I would like to introduce our guest here this evening from Livewell. We all know Nola, and Maria, and Sandra. They're here, and they're observing tonight. They're interested in what we do here, and
actually, we're coming in on Stephen Moss's behalf.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. But
It's even better.
want to make sure that they feel welcome here and they're very interested in what we're doing. And I'm sure we're going to hear a lot from them in the future.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
And thank you for being here. ¿Y María dónde está? Aquí. Oh, Sandra. Okay, here's Sandra. Hey, here's Sandra.
I'd like to also introduce Albus Brooks, re-elected to council, and now represents this part of the city.
Thank you.
Glad to have you here. What's that? Yeah, just a nice little segue before we go to Kelly. So if everybody back here, we don't know, can introduce themselves, that'd be great.
I know a lot of them, Jake Trump from the campaign.
We know you.
Matt Zinsman, I'm an intern at CRL.
And I'm Flossie O'Leary with Clinic of FAI.
What is the CRL place?
Erica Martinez with the NWCAC.
No, we got you already. John introduced you. So next on our agenda, we're back to this top at number 2, and also part of number 3. So we have Kelly lead for some period of time. Well, it's 10 minutes for the first one. So you have about 15 minutes, maybe.
Okay, so what's my first number? Sorry.
Community benefits MOU letter drafting update and the economic study and branding RFP updates.
All right, so I'll work backwards from branding RFP. So, we have an EOC and an Executive Oversight Committee that was there at its first meeting. We're excited to come on board. Originally, we were hoping to issue a branding RFP for the National Western Center, right? The National Western Center, obviously, we're master plan, but it doesn't have a brand yet. It'll be home to the National Western Stock Show, home to Colorado State University. But as we think about the opportunity to build a brand that we can go out globally, that's something we want to do. Long story short is, I think based on a lot of feedback I've got, we're going to hold off on issuing that RFP until after the election. Let the campaign and the elections make itself out, and then we'll issue it after the election. And we'll go through a process together. And I'm envisioning a competition of firms that would help ultimately a firm would be selected through that competition to create the brand for the National Western Center. So we'll hold off until post November 3rd for the release of that RFP. We do have, though, a RFP that we did issue on an economic study. And the goal of that is really starting to address the agribusiness and agri-science opportunities, the jobs opportunities, not just in creating and driving new jobs around this campus and near this campus, but also more localized opportunities for job creation for residents of Mobile area, Swansea. In this economic study, we're bringing a firm in to really set the stage for a more refined and focused conversation of the opportunities that exist, help us prioritize those opportunities. And so those RFPs are actually due tomorrow, and we'll be going through a process to ultimately, depending on how many we get back, going through a process to select a firm. Or if we don't get the kind of response we want, we have the opportunity to not issue or select someone and then reissue an RFP based on feedback we get. There was a pretty robust conversation today at the EOC about the economic study. Yes?
The economic study, sure, it's designed to look at additional revenue coming from national stock.
That's one piece of it.
Is the state fair part of that discussion?
It is not, no. We are focused on implementing a sizable program for the National Western Center, making sure the stock show stays whole, getting our partners like CSU on board. We are not entertaining or talking all about the state fair.
Any other questions for Kelly? Oh, John.
Can you elaborate on the robust discussion that took place?
Oh, sure. I mean, it was just about, there was a couple firms that we were hoping would submit proposals for the economic RFP, and whatever reason, I mean, maybe they're busy or they just, don't think they have the ability to staff it right now. They've opted not to submit a submittal, which is fine. So we want to see, we sent it out to about 13 to 15 companies. So, let's see what we get back tomorrow, and then we'll make a determination as to whether we proceed with making selection. And if not, we'll talk to folks and debrief and learn what we need to do differently and reissue a new RFP. But the goal, again, the robust conversation, John, was really about how do we really leverage the expertise of this selected firm to, again, think about the local opportunities, the regional opportunities, the statewide opportunities, and the global opportunities, and the economic power this campus can have to drive new jobs, both direct and indirect, to this center.
But it wasn't any concern about the feasibility.
Oh, no, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. Thank you. Quite the opposite. I think people are anxious to do it right. The other piece that goes with this is we're going to, and this is a complementary piece to it, it's a agribusiness and science forum. And this really builds on the work that CSU did, the Agri Summit that they did this last year. The report that was released in late 14, the summit happened as a follow-up to that. And there was a lot of excitement, I think, around agribusiness and science and the emergence of a lot of entrepreneurial companies in the state of Colorado. The goal of this forum, now that the state is our partner in this venture of bringing CSU on campus, is to really bring the state and the city, the civic leaders and business leaders together, our elected officials, to start really refining our goal of how do we grow our existing businesses, how do we retain those agribusiness and science businesses, and how do we attract new businesses to this campus and to the corridor as a whole, and really position Colorado as that place where global solutions around food production, food safety, and the like are talked about. So I'm happy if I haven't, we will send it to Roger, the draft of the kind of white paper that is framing what the forum would look like. And the goal is to try to kick that off late summer, early fall, and go through a series of meetings and discussions, and then hopefully some recommendations that would be used both by the state and the city and the partnership to drive new business in and around this campus. Okay.
Any other questions for Kelly on this part of the agenda? I see, and then we'll move on to number 3, and we'll start with the Executive Oversight Committee.
So he didn't do the MOU.
Oh, you didn't do the MOU update, I'm sorry.
So so by way of, and I'm going to hand out, go around. I will describe this here. So the translation of what was an MOU, a memorandum of understanding that I've been working with Bernard and the Coville Civic Association on, and again, based on this philosophy, I'm translating that MOU into this letter. A lot harder than I anticipated, but nonetheless, I'm working through it. But to be honest, I've really been spending my energy on what I'm handing out now, as well as we're going through a process on the capital improvement funds. So let me start with this, and then I'll talk about the capital improvement funds. So if you start with this page here, okay, it's a two-sided thing. So start with the one that says version 1.0. There you go, that side. So one of the goals is how do we translate the neighborhood plans and any master plan into a actionable work plan, all right? So the goal again is to take a vision plan like a neighborhood plan, translate all that information onto a work plan that would then be used to start to lay out a strategy for how do you actually implement the work plan. So this sheet here was our first attempt to do that, right? And a team between Colorado, our community planning development, and ourselves, and a handful of others have been working on this because we want to use this tool for a variety of things. One, it's going to help inform an annual budget process. Because the scale of these projects can be from simple to hard, right? So it starts to inform a budget planning process, both short-term and long-term. That's one. Two is it actually starts to track the implementation of projects. both for the city as well as our external partners. So this is about transparency of process. Because typically our neighborhood plans are not translated into a document, right? They're visionary documents, and then aspects of them are implemented over time. But there's not a tool that's put in place that, like this, that really starts to translate the neighborhood plan or master plan into a project. I mean, I've spent my lifetime doing project work, and this is a tool that I would use to start to plan. How do you get something built? How do you break it down into digestible chunks? So now what I want you to do is flip your page over and go to this. This is the same document, but this is the version 2.0. Again, based on feedback, we're trying to build a document that outlives the NDCC, outlives city staff, that can be used long term. This has actually been built in Excel, and I'll just quickly walk you through it from where it says Plan ID at the top. And this is just a sample, right? This is translating the globe-build plan into a work plan. We'll do the same for Larry Swansea. But basically, each aspect has a plan ID. Each corresponds to the guiding principle that you guys use to organize your plan. Each generally describes the topic. Then we actually drill down and say, what page is that topic on? So it'll say page number, so we actually refer to the plan page, okay? Then we have a brief description. Then, if there's a lead agency, it starts to identify who the lead agency would be. If there's a partner agency, who that would be. Then we tier. Strategy is about starting to define the scale of a project. A tier 1 is a simple project that we can do with a relatively small amount of money in, let's say, a year or so. Versus a tier 4 or 5, which would be very complicated, very expensive, and take multiple years to execute. Status starts to get at, again, the deliverables. So the first step is assigning a project manager. Once a project manager is established, that's project's now 5% complete. And then we go through a process, obviously, ultimately get to 100% complete. To the extent there are other complementary documents like the HIA, we start to align the HIA or other documents. Maybe it's a transportation plan or the River North plan that correspond. Then as we assign project managers, we start to list who those project managers are, approximately a start year and a complete year. So this is the latest version of this work plan strategy we're using. I shared version 1 with the Civic Association. You guys are the first to see this outside of the city in terms of this tool that's evolving for how we start to organize and have conversations with the communities about how we start to prioritize projects. And then again, use those to translate into our annual budget process, and then ultimately a tracking tool to complete projects. Yes, John?
I think he has that up first.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
As any project, always fluidness. Anybody that's term or state that you're able to add or delete, do you feel like these multiple sides of the stock?
It is a hard one.
Can you kind of
Yeah.
repeat what he asked?
Armando, can you talk a little louder?
Well, just give him the microphone.
Yeah, referring to Kelly Dean's document there, and my experience in various projects, both in education, information technology, and real estate, whatever. And any type of project, you always have fluidness. What I mean by that statement is you're able to add and delete projects as you move forward because things come up. The question to Kelly is, based on this document, is that thing solid and gold, meaning that you can't deviate from it, you're stuck to that plan? Does that make sense? Am I clear?
Makes sense. So I think there will be, and it's a great question, I think there are things on here that are more specific in terms of the nature that, I mean, again, all we did was translate what's in the adopted neighborhood plans into this document. To the extent we get into a project, absolutely things could evolve and will evolve. And this is an evolving document. What we have to do is actually have a roadmap that allows us to move down a path to actually get a project complete. So that project can evolve. So as an example, rebuilding Washington Street. One of the first decisions is, Do you use the existing 60 feet of right of way? Do you go to 80? Do you go to 120? Depending upon the answer of that question, the evolution of what a work plan would look like to complete Washington will absolutely change. But this is a brand new, we're piloting this for the first time in the city. This is a new approach to implementing projects, both for the city as well as the neighborhood. Yes, sir.
Could you go through your tier?
Sure.
Again, I messed it up.
Sure. So tiers is just a way to organize
Tier 1.
The scale of a project. So a tier 1 would be a relatively simple project, let's say under 200,000 or under $250,000. So I'll give you an example. The first path we built in Argo Park would be a tier 1. We built that path, right? A tier 4 or 5 would be the most complicated. So the grade separation of rail at 47th and York would be a very complicated.
You answered my question, and I strongly disagree with you.
Okay.
I think Parks and Recreation ought to be a tier 10. I'm talking $50 million.
Where are you?
What I'm saying, you know what? I was part of the neighborhood plan process, and it's sorely ignoring the fact that this part of the city needs a state-of-the-art wellness center, combined recreation center, educational health center, a living learning center, the whole 9 yards. And I have no idea what it would cost, but I know it would be in excess of $30-40 million. So tier 1, and I base this on my past experience. I don't trust Parks and Recreation because they screwed over this part of the city when they closed 2 of the most vital neighborhood, little small centers that we had. So I'm speaking out of admitted bias, orientation, based on my personal experience, and I would say let's go outside and get some expertise other than what's available in Parks and Recreation, because we've been handed that much by them for the last 50 years.
So, John, you're actually proving my point in the power of this document. So
let's change it here then.
We can actually have that conversation.
Okay.
And, it's our attempt to organize, right, as best we can based on the information we have. So your point is well taken, and this document allows us to modify tiers, prioritize projects differently, for us to describe how a project's broken down. So you're actually helping me prove my point in the value of this tool.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Amy.
First of all, I want to thank Steve Nally and Bart Frommer, because I know Frommer, say that again? Frommel, I apologize. Bart Frommel, who somebody else can describe her actual position.
She works for me.
She works for the NWCAC for us as taxpayers. Kelly is her supervisor.
No, I'm her partner.
But thank you.
Well, I should be careful.
Yeah. Okay, so back to the point I'm trying to make. I didn't mean to distract you.
We don't judge.
At any rate, Steve helped me understand something about tiers about 6 weeks ago. I'm glad to see this on the table. I'm a strong advocate for this being more widespread. I'm sorry I didn't see the first part through Civic Association 1. We got to make sure these things get out. I appreciate tier 2. This tiering can also be something that helps us prioritize based on available money when it becomes available. For example, what can we get into the city budget for 2016? And that can be described as more what Kelly's talking about, maybe a simpler project, one that doesn't have a bunch of stages. Even if we have to raise $50 million, we can have priorities and urgencies for just all of these things that are being implemented, including the Western Center, that can be more immediate because they're more accessible as far as the hoops you have to jump through. So let's remember that we have money in the city budget that we can put some of these into, that it's going to take longer to do what you're describing, which is great. And if we make it our priority, we can separate off what we can get in. We don't want to neglect the budget items. Once we know what we can put there, we can get to work right away on getting the additional resources to move up the bigger projects.
Well, I strongly disagree with you, and I'll tell you why. We're talking about a $1 billion project here, and damn it, if we can't shave off several $1 million, we're talking about community benefits, and that's one of the benefits that's going to benefit not just this community now, but for future generations. wellness and health. That coincides with what the National Center's talking about.
Yeah, and I don't disagree. I don't think we disagree.
I don't want to tie this thing to meddling around with the city budget.
No,
let's put it in and get it going.
No, I agree, John. I agree.
Well, then speak up and do it.
Okay, well, that's what I'm saying, is that we recognize within this that we can, and Kelly, you can talk about the calendar. Within this, it enables us to know what can become a part of the city's institutional budget, which is the cure for some of the neglect of these neighborhoods. This is an exciting thing, in addition to what you're saying, John. So there's, they're not mutually
This isn't
exclusive.
an either or. This is
That's right. It's an and.
It's
And it gives us
a
a
tool.
stimulus.
Don't overplay the tool. The tool is just that. It's a tool to help us organize and to help you advance the project. So a related point, then I want to close this part out.
Okay.
Is so the capital improvement budget, which is one aspect of funding we have available to us. That process is making its way through. That's an annual effort we go through. I can report out we submitted about 8 projects to the tune of about 8.4 million. The total number of projects that were requested or submitted for review were 96. Remember, we're competing against other city projects.
Is that for the NWCAC or for global response?
It's for our 8 projects or NWCAC related projects. Some are in Globeville, some are in Larry Swanson. Of the 96 projects, the total request was $296 million. The actual amount of money we have in the annual CIP budget is $14.8 million. So you had $296 million in projects competing for $14 million. Well, some are. This is citywide. This is money that has to be spent across the city. I think I'm following here. No, I just help you understand your point.
Leave at the ranch.
No, I'm still staying in town. Because it's not before.
Because not all of them are related to the highway. No, these are, this CIP has absolutely nothing to do with that. This is city money that goes to fund a wide variety of projects. Right. So I'm just I'm walking you through the process that we go through, and it's just went to the development council, and so over the course of the next week or two, we'll know what of our 8 projects got recommended for selection, and then it's incumbent upon our team. What's not funded is to figure out how we flex dollars we might have to go do the study on the rec center. So we're making sausage.
Kelly.
Oh.
Boy, there's a pelican that's
Hey,
coming here.
now that my heart's stopped, yes, Alice.
I want to make a comment and I want to just ask a question. The comment is this: nowhere in the city is this happening, this prioritization. And I want to thank you for prioritizing these projects so quickly off of a neighborhood plan. I haven't seen it anywhere in the city in the 4 years that I've been doing this. My question is, I want to steal it for our 17 neighborhoods in District 9. And because the next step, I think, to this, and you're doing this the right way, but the next step to this is, a lot of people were a part of neighborhood plans. These neighborhood plans that happened in Global Larry Swansea happened recently. But not everyone in the neighborhood got to be a part of it. And so as we are having kind of our neighborhood outreach, it would be kind of cool, Kelly, to vote on some of these, right? Like, what are the prioritization from the neighborhood? Again, bring it in front of the neighborhood. I know your process from kind of a grass tops level, but to get that feedback again from the neighborhood would be great, because we are in District 9 putting together our work plans from this, similar to what Judy did years back. So I just would love to collaborate with you.
Yeah, and I think the tool really lets us start to do that, where you can go back to a neighborhood or neighborhoods and vote and start to, so people can understand, hey, in any given year you can pick a dozen tier 1s, or you can pick 1 tier 5, right? There's only so many dollars, right? And some things require multiple studies to get to a solution, so that we can get, we're talking about a general bond program essentially for the next few years. The more we can get ready, allows us then to prepare for a GO where we can start to do some of this. So we're going to leverage and collaborate on everything. But I just wanted to share with you kind of where we are in that process. And then the letter, I'll get the letter done. I got to get it out to everybody. And I promised Gordon I would send it to him first because he's in. What's that?
That's great. It's a great point.
So the last thing I wanted to, two quick, how am I doing on time? I probably got way over.
You're fine.
You got about, yeah, whatever she says.
You're fine.
All right, RTA update. So we're making our way. That's the Regional Tourism Act application. We've asked for $117 million from the state.
I know.
The application's being reviewed by the third-party analyst. Our presentation to the state will be on October 5th. It will happen at the Colorado Convention Center. We will go second, so we'll go after Loveland goes. And what we'll do is Lottie will be able to be here hopefully next time, and we'll walk you through what preparing for that presentation looks like. Obviously, having this committee represented as part of our presentation to the state, and it happens in two-part. There's a 45-minute technical presentation, and then there is a 2-hour public comment period, and we're going to organize that public comment period around themes is the idea that we're playing with. So Lottie will come back to this group and start to walk through what that looks like. So I'd like you to at least mark your calendars for October 5th. We will go, Denver's window right now is between 1 and 5, and it'll be at the Colorado Convention Center with more details to come. Okay.
John, when will they make the final decision?
So the question is, when will the final decision be made? So the first week in November is a big week for this project. November 3rd, the voters of Denver will pass the ballot measure. That will trigger the $250 million from the state that will fund the development of the CSU's buildings on the campus and some facilities up in Fort Collins where they collaborate. And then the state will, EDC board will vote on November 6th.
Okay.
And so Maria and I will either be hungover.
Either way.
Or we'll be in a fetal position in some dark corners.
I'm voting for hungover.
But I think hungover in both situations.
Yeah, it could be, it's just different reasons for being hungover. But, so that's a big week. The last, this is more just a preview and we can talk about this in the next meeting, but I wanted to give you some time to have it digested is, we talked a little bit about this at the EOC today. Obviously, the history of this site is so important to the integration of the history to this site is really important. So this is our work plan around the historic aspects of the center. That's the preservation of some buildings, that's the storytelling. Barbara Frommel, again, from our team is helping lead that effort along with History Colorado and Historic Denver. Anyway, we're going to start a process with a round of grants that we can start to apply for that taps into monies that will help us move things along. But this is the work plan that's been developed for the history component. And again, if you remember, because I know we vividly remember Exhibit G of the master plan. Exhibit G of the master plan talks about the recommendations for historic preservation. And so this is a translation of that exhibit into a work plan that we will work on. So we'll have Barbara come back and talk about it next week. But I wanted to get it in front of you now so you can start looking at it. Because we actually have some grant opportunities that are coming up early this next year to fund some of our work around the 1909 building in particular.
Has Jocelyn done her stuff yet?
Any questions on that?
Excellent job.
Yes, thank you.
Kelly, this seems to be pretty much confined to the National Western site. Is there some way to include this area? There's such a great history here, basically, not include the fact that this was the birthplace of the industrial, birthplace of the food industry, all of that. And it's
Maybe it's the last one, because we turn, page 2, if that's that page. It says GES Neighborhoods Historic Resources. So it's in context to a larger story, is your question? Yes, it is. Bertha Rail happened right down the road. I mean, there's a lot of things about this part of the city that are really important that we want to capture. But obviously, for grants, the focus of this is really around the Armor Building, Tom Anthony's Place, 1909 building, 1916 building, some of the storytelling around the old yards, etc. That's what the building reflects, but it does capture the context of the neighborhood. Good question. All right, I've way overgone my time, sorry.
We're fine.
Again, I say thank you very much, Kelly.
Yep.
Thank you for everything.
Thank you, Kelly.
I think you still look for EOC. But you can just do that.
Executive oversight.
Kelly,
Drew?
you're still up.
Kelly and Drew. EOC. Update.
Yeah.
Your first meeting.
So today was the first meeting
Did you go
of
on?
my first attendance at this executive oversight committee.
Did you pass
Can we
through-
have, can we, hey, Kelly, Kelly, pass through the mic.
Because he'll have to drop the mic after he's done.
The acoustics are not great in this room, so.
Today was
Sit on. Paul, do you
I
have
don't know, can you hear me?
any? Paul, is this thing working?
It worked with Kelly. Today was my first meeting of the Executive Oversight Committee, and there was Kelly is the chair, Paul Andrews is also a member, Albus Brooks was there, and there's also representatives from the city attorney, and NWCAC, and Jocelyn Hill was there. So it was just kind of an introduction to the sort of, all of the things are going together to make the National Western Center happen. And so just some of that, I guess, I think Kelly is probably much more capable of summarizing that meeting. So there was just assorted things that we discussed. I have the meeting minutes here. I don't know if that's, I really want to go through all of that. I think that the one thing that's really the exciting thing is the study on the agricultural economy. I think is very important. I think that that's a vision that what we're doing here is very unique. And I don't think there's any comparison in the nation or maybe even the world. And the scale of it and the scope of it, what we are trying to do is really something incredible. And so the RFP for the agricultural economy study, I think is very significant. I'm trying to explain, Kelly, how that's kind of how we implement this incredible vision with global, it has global reach and yet very local appeal. And so there was some discussion, I think very animated discussion about how this selecting a firm that would study this, because this is a very unique, as I said, it's very unique. What we're doing at the National Western Center is very unique. And also how they may be bringing in private partners, because so far all of the main partners in this, National Western, CSU, History Colorado, Museum of Nature and Science, they're all public entities or nonprofits. So I think there's some concern that when we bring in private entities, that the vision aligns with what we're doing here. But we will be relying probably on private participation as this goes forward. I think those were kind of the main things. I think Kelly, you summarized some of the other topics that were discussed. It's a very good group. It's really fascinating. I'm really happy to be part of it. I'm learning a lot. And any questions that anybody has, I'm happy to spend the time and try to.
And we will, as a matter of practice, post minutes, not the minutes are approved, so we'll, as part of the packet that Rod will send out this next week, we will forward
Yeah, and I think what we need to add, Kelly, you and I talked about it this morning, we ought to make sure that everybody knows what the standing meeting dates of the EOC. Okay, so that everybody knows where they are. They're public meetings, so.
Yeah, we'll add that. Time is the same. Now, we just talked about having to move the meeting on the 27th because 3 of the members will be in the visit member board meetings.
Got it.
So stay tuned for the August meeting.
All right.
Any questions for Drew? Okay, we'll switch to the event programming advisory subcommittee, and that's, is that AE?
I'm on that, but as I understand it, there's been no schedule.
Correct. And AE,
I'm supposed to take the lead on that because
I got an email from, I was out of town on vacation, from Ed Nichols. I got an email from Ed Nichols yesterday asking who the citizen representatives were on it, and I provided that information to him. So I think they're getting ready to put something out in terms of when the meeting dates
The
are.
goal is still to try to have a kickoff meeting in August, probably late August. But we met with George and Ed a month on, 3-4 weeks ago to get them ready because they were co-chairing that. It was important for them because they really needed to understand the expectation for the initial work that we will do. It's really process driven. And then CFAS, which is the Capital Alignment Committee, again, that we're still working on the chair for that. I'm hoping to have that wrapped up in the next week or two, but the goal again would be to have that kickoff late August, early September. And that's all about aligning the different revenue streams, starting to work through legal issues that ultimately get put into legal documents. So it'll be a pretty technical group that you are the leaders that you on that committee. So once we have a chair, we'll get a date set. It's going to be a lot of technical folks. Bond counsel, lawyers, folks in the Department of Finance.
Okay, well, we got through that pretty quick.
So there's one quick thing to kind of put in the weave on this, if you don't mind.
Oh, go ahead.
I've had a little bit of exchange with Kelly, as I think some people have, others have, requesting that the relationship of the committees with each other and the National Western Center Advisory Committee, what the loops are and the authorities being part of the briefing we receive. And I think that's something that's going to help us do outreach and engage with people in the neighborhoods even to know kind of how we're doing. Because the National Western Center Citizens Advisory Committee, relative to this, is still like a cohesive foundation, and how we loop and how they relate. I'm just looking forward to when we can. And I know some of it has to be developed within.
It's actually pretty straightforward.
Okay, great. Go ahead.
Can you kind of like just repeat the question?
Yeah, sorry.
So what's the relation? The question, and if I get it wrong, please come in. The question is, what's the relationship of the two subcommittees, the Event Programming Advisory Subcommittee and the Capital Funding Alignment Subcommittee, to the Executive Oversight Committee? So the Executive Oversight Committee is the decision-making body. Okay, subcommittees, one around the event programming for the site, one around the finance, will, once they get going, we will have membership from those respective committees come to the EOC and report. And so there's a loop between the Executive Oversight Committee and the two subcommittees. This timing will become an issue. Questions will start to come up. That's one piece. And obviously, the elected folks that represent the Community Advisory Committee, which are serving on those, you are the link back to this committee. So what we'll do is we will issue, once we get an agenda established on broad topics, we can actually have that be part of this conversation. To the extent you want to report information back into the subcommittees or the EOC, that will lay out a schedule that allows you to do that. So you have time to talk about it as a community advisor. I mean, some of these will take some time to kind of get going. I mean, but once they get going, they're going to go. We're not missing anything. We're not missing anything. Trust me.
Okay, thank you. We'll go into the tourism tax update. I'll hand it off to Maria. I didn't see Bethany.
Actually, no, Jake is here.
Oh, Jake.
So John
Jake.
and Jake can bring you up to date on everything. I'm buried in raising money, so.
You want to use the mic, Maria? Mike is sitting right over there by Mr. Allen.
I'll have Jake. John, why don't you give your update? Yeah, he doesn't need one.
Along the lines of Kelly just said, we're not waiting. We're going to bring it to you right now.
Is that on?
I don't know.
John's on.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there's a delay after
It's
you
on?
click it on, so
Hello?
I think you're okay.
Keep it on.
Am I? Is it on? Okay, fine. We're going to bring it to you right now. To inform you, everybody, we got a smart deal for Denver. That's what it's about.
See our logo.
Jake and other staff people put this together, and what we're going to do is develop, hopefully, out of this group, some of you, some speakers. And we're going to take this on the road, get this show on the road. The big kickoff is coming Wednesday, the 5th, and it's going to be in the Jake Stadium Arena, 11 o'clock. Okay, the main thing I want to bring up to date, and I want to be honest. The first meeting I missed. We had some miscommunication.
You had a good sub.
And the second meeting, I was late. And I didn't apologize for being late or missing the first meeting. But I want to reaffirm you tonight, reaffirm myself more, twice as hard to make up for that. I don't believe in apologies and excuses, so I'll make that up in my work. One of the main things I want everybody in this room to understand, I'm going to be calling on you personally. And I'm going to try and squeeze as much as I can out of you to get this thing. We need to win this. Everything that we've worked for in the last couple of years, everything that's been said here tonight, all the work, Kelly Lee has done a tremendous job, and we can't forfeit that. We got to go with this. As I said in the meeting, it's just not another rodeo. It's not just another rodeo. Riot Fest, Riot Fest, Riot Fest. We need 10,000 Riot Fests. We need every show that can bring money to the town and put people to work in this neighborhood. That's our goal. And I don't mean just shoveling shit in the corrals like I used to do years ago. I mean the future is in the kids in these neighborhoods that can get a good education out of what CSU has to offer in food, water, the environment. I want to see someone take Celia Vanderloop's place 10 years from now when she's ready to retire, because she's done a tremendous job looking out for our well-being in this neighborhood. And that replacement can come out of this neighborhood. But we need to pass this. We got to get everybody on board, and that means the big wheels around here and the little wheels that walk the streets every day. So we need to do it. I'm going to be asking you for your help, and I would like to start a $1 campaign in this neighborhood. $1. Come on, I mean, we spend that much on pop. I don't drink pop, drink other things, spend more. But okay. But it's time for us to stand up to bat. We got to show the rest of the city what we can do. This is the poorest neighborhood in the city, but you know, at one time, these neighborhoods had the highest registration of voters. All Democrats for the most part. But
why are you looking at me?
But Democrats can put this over. And that's part of the scheme that we brought up in our discussion. Crescenta and other elected officials, we're going to go to the Democratic Party and we're going to ask them, lay it on the line. And I want to elaborate. I think we got 2 or 3 governors alive yet. Get them to sign on the dotted line. We can do that. We got big companies in this neighborhood. We got to ask them to support this effort. And I'm sure they will. But it really boils down to what we can do in this room. And we've generated a lot of energy. And it's not just going to be another thunderstorm. We got to make this work. And we'll have more reports coming to you. And I look forward to working with the rest of the committees down the line to make sure that we get the job done in the best possible manner. You got anything to add to the 5th?
Yeah, I got a flyer for that.
Okay.
Where's that going to be?
Treasurer.
In the arena. Where the CSU announcement was made.
yeah, same spot that you and John were both at.
Yeah, right there.
Yes, you do. Yeah, we have
11 o'clock. Be there to get a parking space. Okay? And you know what? you know, I'll admit, I'm not the most polished person in this room, and I ain't gonna apologize for that either. But I'm gonna do what I think I'm best at doing, and that's getting people to get this thing passed. And I think that most everybody in this room understands that. And if you don't, it's time to get on board. We need to make this happen. So as soon as we get something else going, we'll certainly report back to you. You want to add anything, Jake?
Yeah, I got a few things. Just
Sure.
definitely
Mike,
gonna need that.
yeah.
So I think the last time we met was about a month ago. Is this working?
Yep, there you go. It'll happen eventually.
Can everybody hear me?
Whoa.
So a few things since the last meeting. We officially got placed on the ballot just a couple days before. Since then we had the campaign name. We're calling ourselves a smart deal for Denver. We thought anybody look at this ballot measure, it's a smart deal for Denver. There's the National Western Center, the Convention Center, the visitors tax, all of these things are just a smart deal for Denver. We also have a logo. If you have the flyer on the top left, that's our campaign logo, so you can start seeing that over town.
Lasso.
And
We're
just a
working
few
on
things
it.
of what we've been up to the last
Richard's
month.
okay with that
We've
one.
been out
He
getting
didn't like the
endorsements, so we're getting endorsements.
He didn't like the buckle.
Our elected officials at the State House, State Senate,
Buckle was too western.
city council members, and former mayors, former senators, folks up and down throughout the city. And a lot of organizations as well. Just sort of the end of last week, we got the endorsement of the Colorado Restaurant Association.
Matt.
And we're developing programs with our partners. Matt's got a list of them over there. Oh, that's okay.
Matt's
Okay.
working on it. He's been talking to Chai.
So we have a lot of partners. It's a great part of this campaign where we can work with them to really get their membership out to vote and get involved in the campaign. So we're starting to develop these efforts with Museum of Nature and Science, with CSU, the Stock Show, History Colorado, so we can really expand the number of voters we're getting out there to pass this ballot measure. A couple other things. AE is doing the campaign to help us organize the local area in Swansea. So she's going to be calling you once a week, every day. Make sure you're getting out there and this, and asking you to sign up to endorse the campaign. We really want to have a strong presence on the 5th when we kick off the campaign. We want to make sure we have a lot of community support, a lot of support from elected officials. And we're going to be organizing meetings where we can start willing the number of people who are involved in the campaign, so that by election day we have a team of folks who can help turn out the vote in these 3 neighborhoods. And the last thing is, yeah.
Is it only city and county Denver voters can vote, or the tri-county Denver area?
It is just the city and county of Denver.
But we'll take money from anywhere.
So the next thing I'm going to do is hand out
Come on,
an
message.
endorsement form. So it's just a little one-page. If you start over here.
We're going to take one and pass it down.
Like I was saying, on August 5th, we're kicking off the campaign, and we want to make sure that we have a really good showing of people who sign their name to support this ballot measure. Our goal is to have 100 people on our website who said, I'm supporting this, I need you to support this too. So we can start persuading people to vote yes November 3rd and to volunteer for this.
I don't think it's going to take.
I think that's about all I have. Anybody have any questions about the campaign?
I know because of AE is so effective, I've gotten a little fact sheet on talking points.
Yeah.
Do you have more of those to hand out?
I do not have more of those to hand out, but we'll get those. I
But
figured you
next
guys
week,
should.
next the 5th?
Oh, yeah, we'll have them then.
Well,
Yeah.
do you want to give them these and I'll give
Oh, sure.
Yeah, let's do
Lauren was asking.
Any other questions?
Suggestions?
Suggestions? Okay. I'm going to give Amy just a quick second to talk about what she's doing.
First of all, I want to say that this team that's doing the campaign has put together a real good strategy, and I'm not going to be calling you every single day, twice a week, but I'll tell you what is going to be happening, and everything that John Zapian said is the heart of the matter. We're going to be working shoulder to shoulder out there, and I want to say that the numbers of voters that I've talked to here in Elyria, the first concentration so far, we're going door to door to door to door to door to door, and phone number to phone to phone to phone to phone, and it's phenomenal, the amount of response. And CSU is a very beloved organization, and having CSU as our main education and capital partner in this is what it's about in relationship to creating the sense of the generations and the sustainable education and the sorts of things that people really do know bring the quality to their lives. And this is a sea change in the context of the neighborhood plans coming together. I want us to recognize that this body, the National Western Center Citizens Advisory Committee, has brought to the foreground the relationships that will become institutional relationships that will sustain this over the decades. And so it is accolades, and I give accolades as well to people in the city that have stepped up to get this going into the implementations. And by the way, I want to say to you all, you don't have to steal these strategies. These are to be shared amongst all the 78 neighborhoods in this town. This has been the stance of Globeville, certainly, and the Marion Swansea, as these neighborhoods had the incredible opportunity to have neighborhood planners come out from Denver staff. And we know this, that we're setting a precedent by the engagement. So there's a much broader, and you'll see it surface here, we're going to be talking to every person in these neighborhoods. This is the first vote that we get to do together. This will make it participatory. So everything that John says, I'm shoulder to shoulder with him, and please think about where you want us to get speakers, where can you be a speaker, let us get you oriented. It's a pretty straightforward thing to pass this ballot measure. The ballots come out in October, and they will need to be back by November 3rd, of course, so more plans will help you know what to do specifically. And lastly, this thing, August 5th at 11 a.m., please bring everybody and anybody from the neighborhoods. The constituencies are what is important. Bring the kids. The larger the number of people that we have from the neighborhoods right adjacent to this project, the stronger we're saying, this is ours, we are in this together, and we have succeeded in working with the city and with the state and with all these groups to get this going. And now we're going to bring it home. So August 5th, 11.
Great, thank you. Anything else? Before we get to membership and expectations, Paul, have you covered what you want? I think it's important for you to, Paul's had a very quick moving issue and opportunity that I think he needs to bring everybody up to speed on, that I think is developed in the last 10 days.
Okay, so is this still on?
No.
Paul, you gotta turn it on and wait about 3 seconds.
And I should, there we go, okay. Okay, so for about a month and a half now, we have been engaged in conversations about a property that was not listed for sale in the neighborhood, but due to the owner of that property vacating his property and moving to the deep regions of the mountains, I engaged his son. And his son was interested in communicating with his father about the National Western Stock Show potentially leasing his land, which now has turned into he doesn't want to lease it, he will only sell it. So let me explain where it is. So remember, first of all,
my biggest problem right now is RTD, the commuter rail line that is about to cut through our property. Okay, they're taking 7 acres of land. It starts right here at what is known as 49th and Brighton, which is gate 7 for us, which is right next to the post office. And it runs right through the center of our current operation, right next to the horse barns, right next to the Hall of Education, and exits over here down to, the viaduct, underneath the viaduct, okay? So, that's a major problem for us. It's going to eliminate, for me, forever, the only ingress and egress of our exhibitors into this site. So it's a major, major problem in the short term, okay? I'm just reminding you all this. I'm going to lose my hay and feed operation. I'm going to lose the ability to stall cattle over here in a tie-out area that I've been stalling 400 cattle in, okay? So RTD's land take of our 7 acres is a major, major problem in the short term for me. So for 2 years I've been stressing out about what the hell we're going to do, quite frankly, okay? This opportunity came up when the junkyard owner at 51st and Bright vacated his property unexpectedly a month and a half ago. We engaged him, we engaged his son, we talked to them through an intermediary because he had moved to the mountains and did not have any cell service. And we are now under contract for the junkyard. We were one of about a dozen bidders that were engaging him at the same time. Of those bidders, we were the only non-marijuana business. Okay? We were the only one. So, his wife, fortunately, has a soft spot for the National Western Stock Show. And she looked at me and said, we do not want this in the hands of the marijuana people. You guys have to come to our number. We came to their number. So, we are in the process of securing those 8 acres, which are right here, okay, on this map, 51st and Brighton.
So DPS bus barn right here, so just above the bus barn.
So the association voted through the board to try to take, right now we have it under contract, so it's under our control, and it's a necessity. It's not an option for us because we are losing 7 acres, and I'm replacing that with 8 acres. I'm going to use the majority of the RTD money that we will receive from the land take to buy that property. So, what else am I losing? I'm losing our bus. So once this passes in November, okay, our yards get rebuilt over here, as you all know. So I'm losing right now where I'm storing our buses, and I'm losing our mechanic shop. I can't lose either one of those, okay? So that property at the junkyard has 3 buildings on it, along with some acreage just for storage. They will become our new bus area and our new mechanic shop, okay? So this, quite frankly, guys, is a blessing for us all. We have control of a parcel that we know is going to be important to you all for 20, 30, 50 years out. Okay? In the short term, we have to have the ability, and we want to protect it from the marijuana business, because if it falls in the hands of the marijuana business, we all lose. But number 2, we have control of it. So if 20 years from now it becomes TOD, fine. As long as we have enough parking, as long as this all is working together, that's, again, we're very open to that. We know that's what the neighborhood has in their mind, and we know that's what the plan has ultimately in its mind. In the short term, however, if we didn't step in there, it's gone, and it's going to be gone in the marijuana business. So, with that, any questions on that? I know we're getting
Woo! Is that the old crusher?
I guess it was called the crusher. Yeah, I mean, it's got all the junk cars on it, and now he's removed it though. So.
Yeah, they're good people.
Yeah, he sounded like a nice guy on the phone. Yes.
First, thanks for outbidding the marijuana.
This is awesome.
That's good. So I can't see any issues with the short-term use of that. It seems fortuitous that you have these issues and this can solve that. But long-term, I just wanted to point out, I have the map here of the stationary plan. I do just want to say that the neighborhood plans, and beginning with the stationary plan, I think done 5 years ago, but through the neighborhood plan, this was always envisioned as a TOD. And I think one of the things I care about more than, I care about most maybe, is the success of that station and the area around being the TOD and really being a catalyst for regenerating this whole new vision of this neighborhood. So I think it's very important that the that's what I think it should be. I think if somehow we just say, oh, by default, well, the National Western Center will use it. Well, we do have a master plan which works without that plan. So,
Well, the
that's-
only, right, and I agree with him, potentially the master plan works without that land, potentially. We do not have a parking plan. Everybody in this room understands that. We do not have a parking plan.
Yeah.
So, we're studying it with Kelly and his group and others. We now have secured that area because the marijuana business was about to secure it. We've secured it, so you don't have to negotiate with the marijuana business, who would never make that transit-oriented development. We're a willing partner, and we're your friends, okay? So, as we go down this path together, I'm very open to discuss that group. And I understand the intention for the PTOD. And listen, as long as the parking plan and so forth work, and as long as I've got a place to put our buses, and I got a place to do our mechanic shop and all that, which comes in the master plan, but it comes years down the road. And you know, I talk to developers all the time and tell me 15 to 20 years out is what you're looking for transit-oriented development on that property. That's in their opinion, and you may have a different opinion. But anyway, just understand we're a willing partner to discuss that.
Yeah, okay. Because that is just very important. I just want to emphasize that that's.
No, I know.
Look, I mean, we're spending $1 billion on this North Metro line. That station doesn't really function as it's going to be. And I think if it were to just become parking, you know, parking for the National Western Center, that's kind of a conflict with the vision of the two.
Oh, yeah.
Just gonna talk about the issue.
We don't disagree with you.
Well, and I would add with BP, the master plan, you know,
This was just-
RTD only was going to have 43 parking spaces.
Yeah.
We are creating the
Bring it up, because otherwise-
DNA or the infrastructure by buying the DPS lot, building a parking structure there, wrapping it with some retail, starts to set the stage for the long-term TOD opportunity. So, you know, this is, I mean, the reality is we're lucky that this came along because we're going to be lay down area, we're going to be around construction. This will provide that opportunity.
John?
Well, I think this opens a great door for opportunity. And I would, every time I go to the post office and pass, that ground wraps around in front of the post office, does
Yes,
it
it
not?
does.
Good. And I think the problem I have with plans is that maybe there's not enough built-in flexibility. But I think we ought to be thinking about relocating the post office. It was talked about some years ago, and then for whatever reason it changed, and maybe incorporating the post office in some of the other planning here and making it more accessible so that we can get maximum use of the property there instead of having a little bit here and a little bit around the corner. So I think that keep that in mind, and I think a lot of people would support that idea of a newer post office in a more accessible location. Still in the neighborhood, though.
Yeah, fair enough.
So that would add more down the line. Good.
There was one question in the back. Are we good?
Two quick, so was the zoning that was approved by City Council 2 weeks ago through Monday night, will that be another addendum that includes property we're talking about in the zoning?
I don't believe so. Is that correct, Brian? I mean, you
Yeah,
guys
no,
have to
right
decide.
now, the zone, the property zone, the heaviest industrial you've got, given the fact that this is short-term, until we have developed longer-term plans, and once you do that, there's no attempt to rezone at this point.
Accessory use would be for parking, buses, and the mechanic shop.
In the short term,
Yeah.
right? In the short term, just to get us by while we're doing all this construction. There's a lot of years of it. Yes, Steve?
Did we get Dr. Koch, the parking travel, your opinion on the letter for the parking study? Did we get that?
I mean, let me get an update from Barbara.
Because that's part of what you need.
Right, so the parking study that we're doing is two parts. Part one gets to the nuts and bolts of the mix of parking we'll have on campus and recommendations. Part two is about the larger circulator, use of parking for a global view of parking.
Thank you.
And partnering up with us on this, this is where some fantastic public input is going to cement even stronger, I think, the relationship between the neighborhood plans and the master plan. I think this is going to help us a lot to be talking about this stand together for what TODs and protect the neighborhood relative to the parking issue. I think it's going to be really constructive.
Yeah. Okay, I know it's late, and just thank you for all you guys are doing here and your support. Mr. Chairman, on to you.
We're up to membership, and that's actually Maria.
Yep. Okay, Jocelyn, did you want to cover anything on your end? Okay. So very quickly, I know a lot of people had to leave, so I just have to leave. I think Mickey's left, and I know has to leave. Membership and member expectations. Per our discussion last month, Terrence and I did send out a letter to basically 5 members who had not been, as conscientious as the rest of you has been, is I think an appropriate way of saying it in terms of attending. I got back 4 out of 5 responses. Tony Curcio has never responded to our letter, so we're assuming that he no longer wants to be part of this committee and wants to be involved in this committee. The other ones were, Kobe was here tonight, and he, from Grow House, and that he believes that he would like to remain on the committee. He said it's not possible to be in attendance at all times, but Liliana at times has come in and replaced him. Tracy, while was, of course, as you well know, he's very involved with the Denver County Fair. And by the way, a smart deal for Denver. We'll have a presence for that at the Denver County Fair. Marina was here tonight. He feels that he can't, with all his work on the Denver County Fair, really come participate until after that is over. She's been coming, and that she's representing the Rhino Arts District, and he very much wants to be involved and continue being involved. Tangiers, as you well know, got promoted, and I learned something new. I didn't realize she was getting married. So she's been planning her wedding. But more importantly, she got promoted. So she would like to have Groundwork Denver nominate a staff person to replace her because she's working. Yes.
Can we speak to that later?
Yes, I'm just reporting.
Okay.
I'm giving you the responses.
Thank you.
Okay. Stephen Moss also would like to continue being involved. He can't be at all the meetings, but Maria and Nola, would represent with Focus Points and GES Live Well, and they very much want to continue being involved. Stephen felt that when he applied for it, he applied for the organization, not just a person, because originally there was a board member who was going to be coming all the time. That board member is no longer on the board. And so that's the report we have of the 5 letters. So we have clearly one person who is not, I don't think we need to send him another letter. I think if they've been given the deadline, they've been given all of that, we clearly know that Tony is no longer wants to be part of this committee.
French leave.
John.
Tangiers.
Yes.
Okay. It's my understanding Tangiers was on this committee as a resident, not as an agency representative. Is that correct, Dave? Or do you know?
I didn't think she lived. No.
She used to, but she.
I thought she was an agency representative, not a resident.
She was agency.
Well, then there's been a lot of misinformation because throughout all of her involvement, she always passed herself off as a resident.
She used to live in Boulder.
Yeah, she used to live in Boulder.
Right.
So I would pose appointing another agency representative unless you don't appoint. You need to, if you're going to, I don't have any problem with agencies. God bless them. But if you're going to replace her with an agency, then you have to have another resident. That would be my position.
Well,
because I don't want to, everybody uses the community and the residents.
Right.
And it's diminishing. Nobody's replaced Bobby, who left the committee here some time ago. Was he actually seated, Dave?
Bobby.
I'm not sure who you're talking about.
I'm not sure.
Bobby Escamilla.
Oh, yeah, it's Camille.
Oh, I remember now.
I came with Robert.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, I know Ms.
Damn
Robert.
it, you know, we're talking about residents, and I want to be firm on that. You know,
So,
we're being used and abused for 50 damn years.
all right, got it, I'm on it. But can I just say about, I knew him as Robert, not Bobby. Okay, so we called him right away when he did show up for like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, he
and
moved.
He made it very clear he did not have time. I don't know whether it was that. He says, "Look, I thought I was going to do this. Please take me off."
He's
So
one
he's
that's
going to
on
off.
in the suburbs.
Okay. David and then E.
You know, groundworks are still very active in Boca, even though Tangier doesn't live there anymore. And I don't know if some of the groundwork come on for them. I don't know. I know Tangier business with this area.
Can't hear you, Dave. Can't hear you.
Where's the mic?
I said, I think we should still find someone from groundworks. I don't know if they have to live in Boca, but they've been very active in starting to activate Boca. We started 15 years ago.
Well, I don't think John is saying to kick off groundwork. I think what John is saying, we need to have a balance of additional residents.
I'd
Is
love
that
to
correct?
kick groundwork off, but if you want to have them, balance it with the
All right, I'm not going there. All right, but we have, Tony is clearly not responded, so we have an opening. We've never, you're right, we've never, we added, we had 2, no, we could also replace Robert, so what is the will of the committee in doing that? And how do you want to do it? Because I think in all fairness, if we're going to add members of the committee that are residents, we ought to advertise it and let people know about it and decide. I don't think this committee ought to just handpick.
No.
Because everything's been self-selected before and everybody's submitted something. So if we're going to do that, we can also specifically only put it out. We can send an email to Tangier saying, yes, groundwork can find somebody, but then we ought to, if we want to add residents, and we ought to put out a process that says, advertise to the communities via you guys' network and all of the other networks that resident-only applications will be allowed.
As long as we get people that are willing to participate, whether they're from an agency or whether they're residents, but I'm hanging on to the balance of the resident input. That's my position.
I got it.
Okay.
Wait. AE, set her hand up.
All right, I want to just say on all of our behalfs that we're not going to completely resolve this tonight. Clearly, we're already at 7:30, but so we may have to discuss it further in another meeting. And I hope that we can keep it open and not be lobbying around all sorts of stuff out there. I totally support the residents being the strongest contingency numerically in this. I do want to say, and I know this is going to open a can of worms, but worms are great for fishing. So I don't like the subtle morphing of people's role. Liliana, and I spoke, Liliana came on as a resident. I did meet with Kobe both this time and last time and talked at length about the role. Kobe is down with it. If he gets a, and I guess it didn't get communicated directly to you, but Liliana was on here as a resident. She was not on here as a row house. And so that is, we can't morph it like that. And Kobe did ask if he could have an alternate, and that he's talking about someone entirely different. Liliana now is the president of Row House's board, and that does create something they'll have to discuss in-house. But she has technically been a resident. Secondly, I really don't feel that it's appropriate to morph the focus points into a GDS limbo affiliation with this body, which is how you stated that.
Well, that's the Stephen Moss letter.
Okay, well, we need to be very careful about that because Elvis is leaving and Drew is chasing, and I didn't want this conversation to be isolated. But we are accountable to the origin, the original intent, and we cannot. That's a very confusing thing, and that's an indirect way to redefine a relationship and bring in entities and brands and models that I don't feel should enter into what's going on here without full examination. So I just want to have that on record because we haven't decided. Steve came in as focus points. That was who he was with. That was the organization and the entity. And we need to be upfront about this. So I would ask you as chairs to be with us as a body as a whole when we look at that, and because we
Okay.
need to be really clear.
So-
What's the situation of Liliana?
Well, so I just want to make sure, and Kobe left unfortunately, so we could have talked about it, so let me go back to him and say the feedback is, so let me make sure that I'm very precise in what I'm hearing, okay? Which is, he asked if other Grow House staff and board member, if he can't come, could come, he was an alternate. But he also said including Liliana. What I'm hearing you all say to me is though, Liliana has her own seat and is a resident, and she should be only a resident. She should not be doing double duty.
Well, the decision has to be made, if I
May I interrupt?
Well, let me just say this, the decision has to be made.
Let me interrupt you,
somewhere
please.
between those two.
Is she going to be here or not, Liliana?
We, as a resident?
No. Is she going to be here in person?
She has not been here for a couple of
Well, if
meetings.
she's going to be here in person, then we can redefine whether she's here as a agency person or as a resident. But if she's not here, then it's a moot issue.
Well, yes, except for what's being said is she's going to be coming.
That's another question for another day, not tonight.
All right, I think, I wanted to make sure, I think to AE's point, I wanted to make sure that everybody understood the feedback I got.
Okay.
Okay, so we clearly have one person who is not responded, not interested, we move on, right? We'll just take Tony off I think Terrence and I can decide, doesn't mean we have consensus, right? That Tony has not responded, Tony's going off the roster. Okay, so let's at least do that. So you've got that shot. And then we will go back to these people and do some initial feedback, not that any decision will be made, and we'll put this on the agenda for next meeting. At a higher time. So everybody's not. Yes.
Announcement?
No, okay? Is that okay with everybody?
Yep.
Okay, another announcement. Go ahead.
Are we about done?
Yes.
Okay. This is totally unsolicited. I'm not connected to Grow House. I'm not agency person. But they asked me to make this announcement on their behalf. A summer fair celebrating the pride of the neighborhood, Globeville area, Swansea, Ach du Lieber. Join the Grow House and celebrate fun, food, and healthy living. Food, games, fun, family free. Where Grow House, 47 New York, Saturday, August 8th, 12 to 6. So,
okay.
I did what they asked me to do.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Erica, did Erica leave?
Here's this.
Okay.
That'd be great.
You got, yes, pass that around. Paleta Day. Denver Day kickoff. And again, I personally want to thank Kelly Lee, for his assistance on this. I approached him some time back, and he did.
That's cool.
Erica with this. And I want to apologize publicly. I am apologizing now.
Got it.
Kelly, I'm sorry I can't be there.
I heard.
I got a family
No, I
situation,
heard.
and familia primero.
No, understood.
So, this is important because the reason I asked Kelly to do this was to bring focus to the park. And it's going to coincide with what CSU is going to be doing, water education, water. One of these days, hopefully it'll never happen, we're going to run out of water, but we'll head them off ahead of time. Everybody can be there, please. I'm sorry I can't be there. I got a family thing and just can't cut it. But thank you very much, Kelly. I want to thank you publicly for doing this. Next year we'll do it bigger and better.
Can you cut a lock of your beautiful hair off so we have it?
Never mind.
I'm not sure if it's Kelly, the miracle worker, or me calling the Denver 301 line that's having this event. I guess they moved down the 5-foot tall festival.
I don't know either. However,
one last thing.
2 weeks ago, the kids would have got
next month.
Next meeting. Well, okay, thank you, Juan. So, just everybody, David, Kelly, one last thing. We will send you a notice as to where the next meeting will be, which is supposed to be on the 27th. The National Western Complex will be a little busy since you guys had a presentation on this with Riot Fest. So we will send you a notice as to where the next meeting will be.